Wednesday, May 22nd. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. It is Wake Up, bringing you the latest from down in Santa Clara, around the 49ers, and from the NFL, and some points in between. It is good to see you once again. Thanks for being here. Hit like and subscribe. Larry, good morning. You are our eyewitness. You went down to voluntary training camp in Santa Clara yesterday. And without asking, without leading the witness, just boom, biggest first impression. Rorschach test. What is it? Go.
The 49ers are noticeably deeper at running back, wide receiver, O-line, D-line. I think that's what really kind of stood out, is that they just got a lot of guys. I mean, there was no JJ, no Juwan Jennings, no Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle was there but not practicing. You had a whole slew of guys from Talanoa Hufanga to Drake Jackson and others who are rehabbing, so they were off like on the side working out. But yeah, just first glance, even without Jennings and Ayuk, the 49ers have a lot of receivers. They got a lot of running backs. They got greater depth on the line of scrimmage. We don't really know yet exactly how the coaches feel about what they're seeing. There's only been 2 days of practice. Heck, Kyle Shanahan wouldn't even commit to, has anybody looked good? He's like, it's only been 2 days. We don't want to put the cart before the horse. But overall, I would say I didn't see anybody that looked grossly out of shape. Nick Bosa was there. We got our first look at Leonard Floyd. And he looked good, very explosive. And I think overall, the 49ers they're deeper in a few spots. I don't know that they're how much better they are as a football team. But Brock Purdy definitely was out there. He looked good. He looked strong. He's had he's had a chance to get a little rapport going with Jacob Cowing, who was not out there yesterday, but has been in the offseason program, as well as Pearsall. So he had good things to say about both those guys.
Why wasn't Cowing out there? Is he dealing with something?
I don't know. I don't know if he pulled something or why he wasn't out there, but I didn't see him out there yesterday. Today we'll get a little bit more behind the scenes, because today we get a chance to sit down with the assistant coaches on both sides of the ball and ask them anything we want. So this is actually one of my favorite days, because you can ask the players about what's going on, but they're almost kind of like asking the guy in a trench, what's going on? Who's winning World War II?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm in a
going
trench
over here.
Yeah, I'm in a 12-foot trench, and I'm seeing rats crawl around. That's all I'm seeing. So you don't ask that guy, you ask the general, right? Well, it's like the same thing with football. It's like, a lot of times you got to ask the guys who are a step removed from being down on the field, and that's the coaches. And they oftentimes will give you some insights into their position group or the pecking order of things or how they see things. So today's a real interesting day, and we'll bring a lot of that audio back this afternoon. And
I got an assistant coach question. When you're talking to assistant coaches, is Brandon Staley being offered up as one of them?
Oh, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he will be. Yeah. So that's going to be first and foremost. How does this relationship work where you've done the job, but with a different regime, a different franchise, and a different scheme? And now you're the defensive head coach, assistant head coach of defense. What is your role, and how are you going to complement Nick Sorensen? And we got to start peeling the onion on a little bit of that, because to me that's the other thing. It's like that potentially. I mean, it's just so obvious that that's going to be. I don't want to say a bone of contention, but it's going to be the easiest, lowest hanging fruit if the team struggles on defense. It's this tug of war between Nick Sorensen and Brandon Staley,
right? Where
these guys could literally be on, they could be, skipping down the street in Santa Clara arm in arm, and yet it will get played in the media like, these are two guys at each other's throats, and both can't be happy, and people will turn this into drama if there's somehow some backsliding defensively in any way.
Wide receiver depth. All right. That hasn't been a phrase that 49er fans have been very accustomed to over the last few years. But you say it really jumps out. And this is without Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings, two guys very at the top of the depth chart. So beyond, Cowings, who you said wasn't out there, you got another look at Pearsall, Ronnie Bell out there.
Ronnie Bell's there. Yeah, Ronnie Bell, Tay Martin, Chris Conley.
Yeah.
They're pretty deep. I mean, they're pretty deep at wide receiver. I mean, they probably go 11 deep. Trent Taylor. I mean, it was every aspect of this is kind of interesting. It's always interesting to see who's the first rep when the receivers come out and when the team comes out, because that means nothing happens accidentally, right? So the first rep, and there's two receivers that take the first rep. Without Ayuk and without Jennings there, do you want to guess?
Debo was there, though, right?
Debo was there wearing number 1, so he's taking the first rep. Do you want to guess what other wide receiver would be taking the first rep? This is minicamp, remember. They give rookies nothing. So don't say Pearsall, because
I was going to say Trent Taylor.
Trent Taylor. It was Trent Taylor. That's a good guess. I was a little bit surprised by that, because he's kind of I kind of view him as kind of a scrap heap guy that anybody in the league could have had, like a street free agent that was available late in the process that wasn't signed early on. But yeah, Debo Samuel and Trent Taylor were at the front of the line. And a lot of that is the younger players are watching. They don't get lots of examples. They just have to copy what they see. And I'm sure they've talked about what drills they're running and what they want out of each drill. But they put the guys that they think are the best example in the front of the line so that everybody follows and does exactly what they do. So, yeah, Trent Taylor and Debo Samuel in front of the line. And it's interesting because I don't even, to me, one of the areas where, Kyle Shanahan was asked by Jake Hutchinson, are you showing any interest in this new overtime, this new special teams rules? I mean, Jake phrased it in a way it was like, am I showing any interest? I'm a freaking NFL head coach. Of course I'm showing interest. And that's what Kyle said. He's like, of course I'm showing interest. It's a whole new thing. But it's pretty clear to me that
if we were being honest, Kyle would really be like, special teams really don't interest me. I hate them.
Yeah. I mean, especially after the Super Bowl and the not knowing the rules and the overtime. Nah, you know what?
Nah,
we're not into it. We'll play it how it comes and see how it goes. No, so he's like, yeah, we're absolutely very intent on, figuring out all the best angles and how this play is going to work and what are the football advantages and disadvantages and what kind of personnel do we go with? But it's pretty clear, Damon, from looking at just kind of how they've stocked their roster, that the Niners may not know who is their best return option with these new rules. Is it the super sure-handed Trent Taylor? And, man, the rules amount to a bunch of nothing, and at the end of the day, you just better catch the ball. Then you can go with Trent Taylor because he'll catch the ball. But if it's really about no, this is a big play and you really need to take advantage of it and you need to have somebody out there who has speed, well, they've got 3 or 4 guys out there that have speed. And then if it's about tackle breaking ability, you could put Garendo or Hughes Check or somebody like that out there and have tackle breaking ability. So I think it's going to be interesting because it's new to everybody. How do the 49ers view the new special teams rules and who is most advantageous? What kind of player? Is it the sure-handed slow guy or is it the speed merchant? Is it the tackle breaker? I mean, what exactly is the skill set that's going to be coveted by the special teams coach for that role? I think it's going to be interesting to see, and it may change as the year evolves.
Since we're talking about speed merchants, tackle breakers, what do you need? No Christian McCaffrey. He was not there. He was not there. No problems there. Not a big deal. Who was that?
I mean, it's voluntary
backup.
Well, I mean, you've got Elijah Mitchell, J.P. Mason, Patrick Taylor, and then you've got the rookies. Isaac Garendo from Louisville, And I asked Shanahan about him. I said, what is he? Is he a fullback, receiver? I mean, he was a great receiver in high school. He was a running back at Louisville in Wisconsin. He looks like a fullback. They gave him a fullback number, and he's like, he's a running back. But then Kyle went on to say, but he doesn't have a lot of experience doing anything. And, we're going to have to see where he kind of fits in. But, the first thing you got to do as a running back is be able to run with the ball. And then the second thing is you got to be able to block, you got to be able to catch, and there's nuances and subtleties to the position that, obviously create value if you can do them all. And he's just relatively new, but they're just taking their look at him. I think, and I'll maintain that I think he looks like a fullback, a fast fullback, but a fullback. But we'll see. We'll see. It sounds like, that's going to be a very hotly contested position group. Bleacher Report even went as far to suggest that the Niners may cut or trade Elijah Mitchell at the cutdown. We'll talk to Bobby T today. I'm interested to get his thoughts. He won't give you a lot of thoughts on the young guys typically because he's like one of these, they are nothing to me until they prove it. Right. But I am interested to see what he thinks of Schrader and Guerendo and who, where they are in the pecking order. Is one ahead of the other? Is one more advanced in certain areas than another? I want to find out about that. I also want to ask Brian Greasy, who I'm getting the sense, Damon, that Brian Greasy is a little bit of a QB whisperer. And I want to flesh that out with him today about, Tanner Mordecai, Brock Purdy, what he sees in Dobbs, how he sees the pecking order. Is Mordecai real? What does he think of him? Was he one of the reasons that Mordecai's a Niner? I'd like to get some Mordecai from Greasy.
Look, Brock Purdy being out there, it's a big, of course, he's finally around for an off season, so he's going to want to get as much of it. We know that Brock Purdy is definitely, a worker bee kind of a guy. He's not one of those, voluntary? Well, then, no, I'll see you later. He shows up for voluntary stuff. It's kind of been who he's been since high school. What did you see out of Purdy that either made you think it's different, or was it just more of the same steady Eddie type of performance that you've become used to?
It's so funny because it's like if there's been anybody who's been misevaluated by the content creation staff and the media around the Niners, it's Brock Purdy. It's Brock Purdy. I mean, the guys who were covering this team never saw it. They never saw it. They never saw that he was better than Sudfeld. They never, literally until the day that Sudfeld was cut, it was assumed by very many people that cover this team that Purdy would be cut because they guaranteed Sudfeld $2 million and they're not going to walk away from that. I mean, I literally heard that explanation the morning before Brock Purdy made the team and Nate Sudfeld was cut. So the media down here don't see it right when it comes to Purdy. I'm not sure why. And it's maybe just they misread him early, but now they see him, of course, because he's been to a championship game and a Super Bowl. But it's like they still don't see him because, like yesterday, I heard there were people that were like, Brock didn't look good and this and that. He looked great. Are you kidding me? He was totally comfortable. What you're looking for in these mini camps is you're looking for a guy who knows what he's doing and has quiet feet and almost kind of looks like he's just going through a walk in the park. You're not looking for high energy and making plays because there's no plays to be made. There's no live rush. There's no live anything. It's just a matter of get your footwork right. And to me, watching him conduct the drills, the passing drills, his balance is perfect. His feet are under him. His mechanics are sound. He's got more zip on the football than he's had in the past. He just looks very, very comfortable and very much in the know on every aspect of what what Greasy and Shanahan and the offensive coaching staff is asking from him. So I just thought it was interesting because there were people yesterday who were like, he didn't look very good. Well, these same people were telling you the sky was on fire because The 49ers didn't move the ball particularly well against the Raiders in Vegas in a summer workout. How did that work out?
Didn't sound like people, sounds like person.
Well, but it is multiple people. It's multiple people saying, hey, he didn't look good or this or that. And it's like, you were telling us, and many were telling us that Trey Lance was it. And that, Purdy, the other thing, here's the other thing that gets utilized tons, and you're going to hear it this summer, and just block it out because it means nothing. Every interception in camp, not every, but I would say if 2% of all interceptions in the regular season get returned for touchdowns, 40% of all interceptions in camp get labeled as pick sixes. And that's simply because the offense is standing 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and any interception where you can get it and run 5 yards, we put it down as a pick six. You know what I mean? And it's not a pick six. The pick six is the worst play a quarterback can make in football. And so people who are trying to make you think that the quarterback sucked will say, yeah, and he threw 2 pick sixes. Okay. All right, tough guy. He threw 2 pick sixes. In other words, he threw 2 balls that got tipped into the air, and then a defender ran 4 yards, and then we give him the pick six. It wasn't a pick six is a disaster in football. We saw Kaepernick throw 2 back-to-back in his final year against Arizona. It's not a good thing. It's the worst play you can make as a quarterback. So just remember that this summer when people are like, well, and he threw a pick six. Pick sixes mean nothing in training camp. Every interception basically is a pick six.
Look, no one wants to have bad football practice, but covering practice with the breathless intensity of covering the third quarter of any Super Bowl is just insane. And that's been proven time and time again. And again, welcome to Wake Up. Like and subscribe if you would like to hear about football from people who actually know what they're looking at. It is great to have you here this morning. Did you see Pro Football Focus has put out its quarterback rankings, Larry, and Brock Purdy's ranking matches his jersey number. He comes in at 13. Now, before we start debating where he's supposed to be, let's play this little game. Would you trade this for that? That's how I want to do this. I'm going to go over the 12 quarterbacks in front of them and tell me.
Well, do you have it in front of you, Damon, by the way, the way they have it grouped? Because it wasn't just the ranking that I mean, the ranking I think is fine, to be completely honest. If you said to me, I have Brock Purdy as the 13th best quarterback, I'm not jumping down your throat going, what?
Sure.
You got to be kidding me. He's got to be higher. And I'm not sitting there going, what? That's way too high, way too low. You can make your argument. I'd maybe put him definitely a little higher than that, but you know what? I'm fine with anybody who's got a reasonable middle of the road opinion on Brock. But when you see the groupings under the headlines,
right? So
that's where this thing gets kind of like, what the fuck are you guys even talking about at Pro Football Focus? I almost retweeted that and said Pro Football Focus today lost a ton of credibility because of how they labeled Brock Purdy and how they labeled the people in his category. But go ahead.
So it starts with number 1. And let's be honest, there's not a single team in the NFL that wouldn't trade their starting quarterback for Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes is in tier 1, and that tier is called Mahomes.
He's all by himself, which I thought is totally appropriate.
Absolutely it is. Patrick Mahomes is the only player in the NFL where, without question, the general manager would trade his starting player for your starting player, sight unseen, salary not even given. Every team in football would trade their starting quarterback for Patrick Mahomes. He is in a group of 1. The second quarterback grouping is called Tier 2, and it's the elites. And only 3 players make the group of elites: Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen.
And I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with any of that.
I think Joe Burrow belongs on a second level above those guys, to be completely honest. But Lamar's done it in the regular season. Allen's had some amazing moments. But if you really, we're really grading this thing out, I'll take Burrow number 2. But I hear what you're saying, and I got no problem with those guys being grouped as elite because they are elite. I think Lamar proved to Niner fans and football fans everywhere on Christmas night exactly how elite he was.
Tier 3, known as postseason caliber quarterbacks. And again, this is where I think the insult to Purdy comes in, because if your category is called postseason caliber quarterbacks, why not consider one guy whose season has never ended in anything but a postseason? But okay, we'll go splitting those hairs in just a second. The tier 3 postseason caliber quarterbacks are Justin Herbert at 5,
who's sub 500. Go ahead.
Dak Prescott at 6,
who was terrible head to head against Purdy, 3 picks. Go ahead.
Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud. Now, let's go back and play the real quick. Would you trade him for?
I mean, Rodgers is 40, and his is obviously a lifetime achievement award, right?
Of all of those quarterbacks, Larry, the only quarterback in that group that I would have a conversation would be CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud looks pretty freaking good, very special early on in his career here. Doesn't have quite the resume that Brock does, but was thrown into a situation that didn't look very good, and he elevated the entire situation around him and his play. He looks very special. But
they're the team on the come in the NFL. They are the juggernaut. They are the gigantic storm that you see over the ridge that's forming. Storm clouds are forming in the AFC if you're a Chiefs fan, and it says Houston Texans on it.
I'm certainly not trading Brock for Aaron Rodgers for age at this point in time. I'm not trading.
No way, Prescott.
I'm not trading Brock for Jalen Hurts. I'm not trading.
Which was amazing because I did a video on this last year saying that these are the same guy because they had like 75 traits that were the same as far as height, hand size, weight, religion, leadership style, everything. I mean, I cross compared these guys, a couple of years ago when the Niners played the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, and I realized there's so many similarities between Purdy and Hurts. And I did a video on it. It was like, people were like, you are absolutely crazy. You're crazy to think that Purdy's in the category of Hurts. Hurts is worlds better than Purdy.
No.
Literally one short year later, I think the consensus is that Purdy's better than Hurts.
And again, we're not saying that Jalen Hurts is bad. We're not saying that Jalen Hurts leaves you with a quarterback who's an inferior quarterback. He's a really good quarterback, but am I trading him based on the way the Niners want to run their offense? No, I'm not trading Brock Purdy for Jalen Hurts.
I'm not either.
Justin Herbert, we could have a conversation, but the answer is probably going to be no. Dak Prescott, my answer is no. Matthew Stafford.
I mean, Herbert's got a huge talent. There's no question. We can all see the talent. It's there. And he's like central casting, right? He's like the quarterback from central casting. But you're sub 500, and you've played on a team that's had a lot of talent around you. So I can't hear Herbert's clearly better when Herbert's sub 500. You got to win games. It all comes down to winning games.
Well, and I think that there's another guy who absolutely fits that matinee idol prototype central casting, send him down, and that's Trevor Lawrence, and he is ranked above Brock Purdy in tier 4 now, called the melting pot of starters. Number 11, Jordan Love. Number 12, Trevor Lawrence. And then number 13, Brock Purdy. Jordan Love, very interesting. I'm not here to tell you what he isn't, because he is now absolutely giving us evidence that we should be evaluating him and what the might be. Not focusing what he's not, but focusing on what he is. And what he is a really good young quarterback who's ready. Looks like he made that turn to becoming a very good quarterback midway through last year.
He reminds me a lot of Colin Kaepernick as far as just, big, strong, fast, athletic. There are people that will watch Jordan Love and claim that, he's got as much potential to be as good as any quarterback out there because he's got high-end traits. He's a high-end runner. He's a high-end thrower. He's a, you know what I mean? He's what you're looking for in a lot of ways.
Well, and so is a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Again, body type, arm strength, all the measurables, the intangibles seem to be there. Leader, got through the ridiculously inept Urban Meyer, which, was his introduction to the NFL with that guy. So he was a really talented guy put in a bad situation, compounded by how bad Urban Meyer was. But just looking at some raw numbers as he begins to come out of that mess, Brock Purdy dwarfs him in individual game production, grand total of a season production, team success. I mean, I don't know if I am trading Brock Purdy for Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if I
was what was the category above this category called? What was the
So this is now we're in tier 4, the melting pot of starters. Before that, it was called postseason caliber quarterbacks.
How would you say, how do you do a ranking like this? Have Brock Purdy in it, watch him go to the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, and not have him down as a playoff caliber quarterback. We're not talking about Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. We're talking about playoff caliber. How are you not playoff caliber when in the only 2 years in the NFL, you've been to the conference title game off the bench, never played until week 13, ran the table, and then won 2 playoff games before getting knocked out of the third? He's never lost a playoff game except for the Super Bowl that he started and finished. That's it.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that the Pro Football Focus here isn't using the playoffs to determine.
I mean, you got Lamar as elite, but Lamar's elite, but he's won 1 playoff game and lost 5.
Right.
Purdy's not playoff caliber, and what is he? 5-1, something like that in the playoffs. 2-0 last year. 2-1 last year, technically 2-1 this year, maybe. So I guess he's 4-2. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah. How about this? If you ever attached the record that Lamar has in the playoffs to Brock Purdy would be, I mean, the people would be jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. So, it
just kind of shows that they're kind of picky. They're picking and choosing these names. And I thought also read the other part below it where they actually give their reasoning. I thought their reasoning on Purdy was interesting too. Do you see that?
So Purdy's little 2-paragraph write-up, every quarterback here gets a little write-up to explain where they are on this ranking. It says, I'm fairly comfortable with Purdy's ranking on this list. His consistent success, albeit in a very talented offense over the past 2 years, should not go unrecognized. His 78.3 adjusted completion rate was a top 5 number in 2003, which speaks to his timing and accuracy. His 5.4% big-time throw percentage shows that even with below-average arm talent, he's good enough anticipator to make things happen. Purdy is also a very confident player. He pushes the ball, which battles the game manager label that he often gets. He's not just a dink and dunk passer. Does he have the athletic talent of some other players? No. But is he damn good at his job regardless? Okay, so it seems like they sort of get it, but then they also don't get it all the same time that they're sort of getting it. My question, I guess, would be this, Larry. Why is the talent that Brock Purdy is surrounded by scored against him in such a manner it needs to drop him out of the top 10, but the talent around the other quarterbacks is never even considered or brought up as a talking point?
Right. Well, and here's the other one too. All this talent. I mean, once again, playing for Shanahan, you're marked down because Shanahan's great and he's carrying you. Playing for the Niners, you're marked down because the weapons are great. And, but I mean, the Niners, he is operating behind an offensive line that's not considered very good. The interior offensive line, by the same group that just ranked the quarterbacks, Pro Football Focus, ranked the Niner interior offensive line 28th in the league out of 32 teams. So the 3 guys that are most important to protecting a quarterback are the center and the guards in a lot of ways, because that's where if the pressure comes up in the middle, play over, you're moving on to the next play. And Pro Football Focus has looked at the Niners center and 2 guards and said that they're 28th out of 32 teams. And yet this quarterback who continues to win behind this 28th rated offensive interior doesn't get any real credit. The other thing I think is really funny is that you're going to mark against Brock Purdy down because of the weapons, because of Shanahan. Nobody ever remembers that key stat that when Brock Purdy trotted out onto the field in the middle of the first quarter in week 13 in 2022 against the Dolphins after Jimmy broke the foot. All quarterbacks not named Jimmy Garoppolo at that point under Shanahan with the Niners, with this bevy of awesome weapons, were 9 and 29. And This guy stepped in as a rookie, ran the table, went to the conference title game, and the next year came back from a major elbow injury and led them to a massively successful season and a Super Bowl appearance.
Right.
So all that is thrown out the window. And the 9 and 29 is like, 9 and 29 for these other quarterbacks. I know nothing. It's suddenly it's Hogan's Heroes. I see nothing. I know nothing.
Thank you, Colonel Klink. No, yes. It is amazing how there is empirical evidence to just blow torpedo-size holes, like torpedo-size holes in the halls of some of these arguments. Yet they continue to make these arguments. Again, if Kyle Shanahan had the offense that anybody could have had success in, we would have never gotten to Brock Purdy, right? Trey Lance.
And not only that, I kind of wonder if the labeling had just, like, teams lie and schools lie. USC listed Bronny James at 6'4". He just went to Chicago. They measured him without shoes. He's 6 feet. 6 feet. He's the same size as Davion Mitchell. He was listed at 6'4". Brock Purdy is a small guy because he's what? Honestly listed at 6'1", 225 pounds. He's the same height as Steve Young. He's the same height as Drew Brees, but those guys were kind of listed at like 6'2". Aaron Rodgers is not the tallest guy. I would say Aaron Rodgers is probably about 6'2", which is plenty tall enough. But it's like that's right there on the cusp. If you're 6'2", you're tall enough. If you're 6'1", you're not tall enough. You know what I mean? And that's
I don't understand. What I also don't
understand.
We're
talking about 1 inch. We're talking about if they labeled him at 6'2.5". 227, would they be calling him small? But instead he's listed at 6'1", and suddenly it's like, he's kind of small.
Well, and I don't understand either, because we've watched enough football to know that calling Brock Purdy unathletic just means you're wrong.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing unathletic about the kid. Is he someone who's about to lead all quarterbacks in rushing? The answer is no. And you wouldn't want him to. You don't want your quarterbacks to lead all quarterbacks in rushing. It exposes too much, and it's also maybe a little bit of an admission that we got to get this done more with his feet. Look, Lamar Jackson, I'm not here to say anything bad about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has all of those same Brock Purdy intangibles that we insist are not given enough credit. He does see the field pretty well. Whether or not the talent around him is good enough to be a third or fourth option in a pattern is good enough, that's another story. But I really think that if you tied Lamar Jackson's cleats together and just said, you can't run anymore, you got to do it all with your arm, he's nowhere near any consideration of elite quarterback play. I would say the same thing exists for Jalen Hurts too. And I just don't understand how throwing a really good football that gets caught at about a 70% rate with talent and scoring everywhere you look, kind of all operating together with this guy running the show, how that gets belittled, how that gets held against Brock, how well the 49ers operate. And he is, just a casual observer watching this operate. Anyone could do what he does. No one could. And
the athletic limitations have been so erroneously reported. I mean, who is the fastest, quickest, most athletic player in the NFL? If I say to you, fastest, quickest, most athletic player in the NFL
Tyreek Hill.
of
Tyreek Hill. There you go. Tyreek Hill is my answer.
Tyreek Hill. And I would agree. It's Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill runs a 1-5-1 10-yard split. Brock Purdy runs a 1-5-4 10-yard split. I mean, that's how close he is to the quickest athlete in the sport who plays wide receiver, who's borderline untackleable in the open field. Brock Purdy runs a 1-5-4 10-yard split. That's incredible. That's running back. That's a level of juice to get away. And you see it. And it would be one thing if like, well, yeah, that's just a workout number. It doesn't actually show itself on the field. No, it does show itself on the field, because when you come around the corner and you're going to sack Brock Purdy, he's got spurt ability. And the same thing with Mahomes. It's like, is Mahomes a dangerous runner? Damn right he is. Is he fast? I don't know if he's fast, but he's a dangerous runner because he knows when to run, and his first 2 or 3 steps are enormously quick. And that's Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is going to run like Mahomes throughout his career. He's going to run in the fourth quarter on the when the money's on the table, like he did against Green Bay in that final drive of the playoff game, where it was like they had to score, and it wasn't a field goal. They had to score a touchdown, and he got down into the red zone, the high red zone, and had a huge rushing play that brought them down inside the goal, near the goal line, and McCaffrey did the rest. But literally, you take away that run from Purdy, they probably don't win that game. So, I mean, he's an elite mover. And to me, I look at Green Bay and the Niners, and I see the same thing that I saw with the Niners and the Seahawks, except the Niners used to have Kaepernick and the Seahawks had Russell. Now the Niners have Russell and the Packers have Kaepernick. Love is a tremendous talent, but there's going to be some inconsistency in his game, and he threw the game-losing interception to Greenlaw on a cardinal sin thing for a quarterback. You can't throw late across the middle of the field. Well, he did, and he got picked, and the Niners moved on. Well, Brock Purdy is like Russell Wilson. He's going to put the game away with the offense on the field more times than not, which is why the 3rd and 4 in the Super Bowl at the end there was so painful, because I would have put it in Purdy's hands. I would have taken it out of Mahomes' hands. I would have run the ball on 3rd and 4 and run it again on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 and put the ball in Purdy's hands to put the thing away. Instead, the Niners settled for the field goal, gave the ball back to Mahomes, and now we're staring at another Mahomes Super Bowl.
What does Brock Purdy need to do to drop this arm strength isn't good enough conversation? Like, what about leading the NFL in downfield throwing?
He did.
Right.
He did.
So
he was
that's not going to do it.
Per attempt. He was number one.
That's my point. Like, at what point does the data returned by football games actually get into this conversation? And that's the thing that drives me nuts. It's like people are just holding on to their personal opinions, and they're going to go down in flames with them, even though the data that Pro Football Focus spits out saying, hey, nobody throws a downfield ball better than this guy. Yet, problem, below average arm talent. What does below average arm talent mean for Brock Purdy when he's leading the league in just about all arm talent categories? I don't understand it. What does he need to do to get everyone on board with his arm talent? Does he need to go into one of those bars with the speed bag punching game where you hit it as hard as you can, and then the entire bar can see, what your pounds per punch per square inch are? I mean, what does Brock Purdy need to do to show people that he does what Steve Young says is the single most important thing a quarterback can do? He throws a catchable football.
Well, and it goes beyond that. I mean, if there's 100 quarterbacks, let's say in the NFL, right? There's 32 teams. Each team's got 3 quarterbacks. You got roughly 100 quarterbacks in the NFL. I would go as far to say that probably 75% of them throw a better deep ball than Brock Purdy. But I mean, Drew Lock throws a better deep ball than Brock Purdy, probably. Heck, Josh Dobbs may throw a better deep ball than Brock Purdy. But Alex Smith, I think
it doesn't flutter as much at the end.
There's more zip on it. It doesn't hang. There's a little bit more. But I mean, ultimately, I think Alex Smith, who really is a guy that I love listening to talk quarterback. Why? Because he's been both. He's been both the raw, heralded number 1 pick that couldn't survive because he just didn't know how to play the position. And then he became this guy who physically his body wasn't there anymore, but he mentally
He learned the game.
Is incredible, right? So he really did learn the game. And he said, you know what? The three things that come down, that the three most important characteristics of great quarterback play, and it's processing, it's accuracy, and it's toughness. And processing comes down to your mental capacity and how well you process lots of factors all at one time under pressure. Accuracy is just that, where your ball placement, and toughness is just, does it bother you that 300-pound guys who run 4.6 are,
chasing
all
you
around you trying to kill you? Does that bother you? And some guys it bothers. Well, Brock Purdy, it doesn't bother him. He's tough as hell. He sit there and take those hits. His career began with a Keanu Neal off the edge monster hit in the Tampa game where he just got smoked, absolutely smoked on the first play. And he got up. So he's tough. And Alex marveled at his toughness. He's like, man, this guy's the toughest guy there is. He's like, it never bothers him to stand in against the rush. And this is a guy who knows what it takes, right? So the toughness is off the charts. The accuracy is really, really good, but it's the processing and the speed of the processing, pre-snap, post-snap, that makes Brock Purdy who he is. He knows where to go with the ball. He plays on time. So it's like, if you're bad at your job, at whatever job you do, talk show host, lawyer, doctor, receptionist, you're bad at your job. Okay. You can mitigate how bad you are at your job just by getting there early. I'll get there early. You're a bad student. I've got a tough class. I'm going to get a terrible grade. Well, you know what? I'll get there 10 minutes early. I'll talk to the professor. I'll sit in the first row. You can kind of control things. Quarterback's the one job in that I can think of where you can't just, I'll throw it early. No, you have to play on time. Not early, not late, on time. He plays on time. He processes correctly. The ball comes out on time with accuracy. And he displays tremendous toughness, which has made him a real leader amongst his teammates. So he's got all the boxes checked. And they will, as far as your question, Damon, when will people recognize it? They'll recognize it when he has a high-profile deep ball to a guy like Jacob Cowing, who he's got a go pattern and he hits them in stride, and all of a sudden a couple of those in high-profile games, or if he wins the Super Bowl. Right. He wins the Super Bowl or hits Cowing on some high-profile go routes, that's when people will stop talking about the lack of arm talent.
Remember when Trey Lance hit Danny Gray on his third professional pass in a preseason game, and it was a big bomb, and it was beautiful.
It was.
And people were just jerking off to that. So that's what Brock needs. Will that get it done?
If he's got when you throw it 5 yards and a guy makes a guy miss and goes 95 yards, it's him. When you throw it 45 yards and then he goes 50 more yards, it's you. So it's like he's going to have to connect down the field. I mean, the Niners really haven't had the kind of receiver that could even run the go pattern and gain any kind of separation. They do have that piece now in Cowing. And I asked Purdy about it yesterday. And, it's like he recognizes that this kid's got a lot of talent, and he recognizes that this kid provides an element of football, that they currently don't really have right now. I'm going to share the screen real quick and I'm let you hear this, because this is a pretty good answer yesterday. This is Purdy yesterday in Santa Clara, and I asked him about Cowing, who wasn't out there on the field yesterday, but here's what he had to say about Cowing. Let's see if we can get this. Hold on a second. There we go.
Make it bigger. There we go.
Here we go. We rewind it back to the front. Here we go. Here's Purdy.
Brock, how do you feel about, have you had any chance to throw with Cowing, and what do you think he's going to add? I mean, a guy with that kind of speed, does he create space out there?
Yeah, he's quick, he's twitchy, and just I'm impressed with just the way he's acted and interacted with guys. very smart, very respectful, and a guy that I can tell he's gonna get after it in terms of knowing what his job is. And as a quarterback, I feel like you're always looking for a guy that you can trust, and so yeah, I've seen that so far from him. I'm excited to see what he can do just in terms of taking off top and running downfield and everything once we get to it. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. So there you go.
Early
And-
trust, Larry. Early
Yeah.
trust is good.
Trust is a big part about playing quarterback. You saw Purdy kind of verbally unleash on Ray McLeod because McLeod freelanced on a ball where the defender was kind of cheating inside, and McLeod's like, okay, I know I'm supposed to cut inside, but I'll just cut outside because the defender's inside. And it's like, no, you got to go where the quarterback thinks you're going to be. You can't freelance, because otherwise that's how balls get picked off. Well, sure enough, he freelanced. He went outside. Purdy threw the ball inside. It wasn't picked. It fell incomplete. But you saw Purdy going, "What are you doing?" He was like screaming. And I asked him about it the next week because there was also, after the series was over, you see him on the sidelines kind of animated talking to Ray. And Brock just laid it out there. He's like, hey, man, you got to be where you got to be. And you can't freelance and just make it up as you go. You gotta be where I think you're gonna be. Otherwise, I can't throw with anticipation. And Brock is a big anticipatory thrower. So that was a major mistake by Ray in a big, big moment. And Brock kind of verbally let him have it. And what he's telling you there is that Cowing is trustworthy. Cowing is, humble, and he fits in. But he understands
scared,
that.
I think, as a rookie to go ahead and start freelancing. You know what I mean? Like when you're a freshman, you got your campus map out and you're just trying to get to class, and that's how Cowing should be operating. Whatever you need me to do, coach, in whatever direction you tell me to run, I'll run. How many yards? 7. Let's make that 7 on a dime. I mean, that's what he owes the Niners early on in his career.
Well, and that's the level of accountability and complexity that the college game does not offer. In college, they hold up cards. There's all kinds of forgiveness, and it's backyard football,
right.
And to a large degree compared to the NFL. In the NFL, if you watch the 49ers in practice and you watch Brandon Ayuk run a in route or an out route, he doesn't run it at 9 yards. He doesn't run it at 12 yards. He runs it at 11 yards. And so if you're if you chart the Niner games, go back and look at how many Purdy to Ayuk in routes or slants or whatever went for 11 yards. Not 10, not 9, not 12, 11.
Right. That's why Ayuk was a human first down.
And that's why he loves Ayuk, because Ayuk's going to be where he's going to run that route the exact way it's drawn up. And if you run it at 12 yards, it's a different angle. If you run it at 8 yards, it's a different angle. You got to run the 11-yard pattern, the exact way it's drawn up, because that's when Purdy puts it right on the hands and everybody goes, wow, look at Brock Purdy. But it's more than Brock Purdy. It's Brock Purdy, but it's Ayuk. And it's knowing when to cut off the route. And it's not like anybody says to you, you just ran 9 yards. You gotta have a feel for spacing and how many yards you've run. And there's a level of precision with NFL passing games that the college game never even comes close to. And that's why you'll keep seeing the same, Purdy to Ayuk for 11, Purdy to Ayuk for 11. It's like he's running that same route, the same depth every time.
All right. So like and subscribe, hit notify. Don't miss a thing when Larry or I go live. Make sure you're subscribed to both channels, please. Damon Bruce Plus and The Krug Show. It is great to have you here. Let's get back to our thought exercise that we were starting this whole conversation with. Larry, I don't want any explanation. Yes or no's only. Would you trade Brock Purdy for, let's go over the quarterbacks that Pro Football Focus has ranked above him. You trading Brock Purdy for Patrick Mahomes?
Yes.
For Lamar Jackson?
No. You got to win in the playoffs, man. You got to win in the playoffs. If you That's what the whole thing's about. It's about winning in the playoffs.
Right. Well, I'm
Lamar
also
hasn't won in the
right.
playoffs.
And I'm also trading. This trade is being, executed under the you're a 49er now. Kyle's running your offense. I don't think Lamar Jackson would do very well in Kyle Shanahan's offense.
A lot of people think he'd be
making that
incredible in Kyle Shanahan's offense. So there's the people that think the opposite of that. But
right.
To me, it's not. I know, and there's lots of people be critical of me for saying I wouldn't trade Purdy for Lamar Jackson. No, you're a homer. You're a this. You're a that. It's about winning in the playoffs. And Lamar has had to play from behind in the playoffs. Teams have forced him to play from the pocket, and he has been unable to come out victorious in multiple games.
Yes to Mahomes, no to Lamar.
No to Lamar.
Joe Burrow. You trading Brock Purdy for Joe Burrow?
Absolutely.
You trading Brock Purdy for Josh Allen?
Absolutely.
You trading Brock Purdy for Justin Herbert?
No.
Brock Purdy for Dak Prescott?
No.
Brock Purdy for Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers, which I'm guessing at this age in their careers, it's a double no.
Well, I would say yes. I would trade Brock Purdy for those guys because let's take their age out of it and just say, let's just make everybody the same age. And I would just say I would trade Brock Purdy for Stafford, and I would trade Brock Purdy for Rodgers because those guys have had whole careers and I wouldn't actually make that trade now, right? I wouldn't trade 23 or 24-year-old Brock for 40-year-old coming off an Achilles Rodgers. But in theory, if you just said, hey, Rodgers at his apex, Purdy at whatever you think he's going to get to, yeah, I would take Rodgers and I would take Stafford.
Trading Brock Purdy for Jalen Hurts?
No.
Trading Brock Purdy for CJ Stroud?
Probably.
Are you trading Brock Purdy for Jordan Love?
No.
Are you trading Brock Purdy for Trevor Lawrence?
No, I'm not. I don't,
So
I like Trevor Lawrence.
For the most part, for the guy who's coming in 13th on this list, you would only trade him for about 5 guys above him.
Right. And then, and that's where I have Brock Purdy. I have Brock Purdy just outside the top 5. To me, if you're saying where does Brock Purdy rank, and we're in a short conversation, we don't have lots of time to get into the exacts. I'd say between 5 and 10. He's not a top 5 guy, but he's definitely more than a middle of the pack guy. Middle of the pack in a 32-team league means 15, 16, 17. He's better than 15, 16, 17. He's not top 5. So I would say he's in that second 5. I would say he's between 5 and 10.
I mean, that's fair. I think that's fair. I don't think he has earned his way into the top 5, and I don't think he's done anything to just be completely out of the question for a top 10 conversation. If you're using a guy's debut as a starter as the starting point of any evaluation, Brock Purdy's career from day one as being named starting quarterback to right now mirrors the very best that have ever played in the history of football and has dwarfed the starts of the careers to an awful lot of the guys who rank above him on this list. So I can't wait for 2024 to officially get here. And, if Brock Purdy more than picks up where he left off, if Brock Purdy is instantly, a little bit better than he was last year right away, like to where even, Grant, his harshest critic, has nothing but a compliment for after week 1. The NFL better look the fuck out, Larry. I mean, the NFL better be ready for a team that is, somewhere around 30 points a game once again with Brock firing on more than all cylinders. I'm excited. I really am.
Well, I mean, do you have any doubt that he's going to be as good as he's been or better? Because I don't. I think there's lots of people that think that he's going to regress and that there's going to be this, Jimmy Garoppolo regressed. That's the thing. If your entire scope of evaluating quarterbacks is just Jimmy Garoppolo, then your focus is too limited and you probably aren't seeing things clearly. Just because Jimmy regressed doesn't mean Brock's going to regress. Just because Kaepernick regressed doesn't mean Brock's going to regress. You regress when there's flaws in your game and the advanced scouts find them and kind of force you to do things that you're not good at. Brock Purdy has already gone beyond that. As far as this guy's already, he's a starting quarterback on a team that, every team in both conferences is keenly aware is going to be a playoff team. The Niners offense has been studied and gone through with a fine tooth comb, looking for ways to, defeat Brock Purdy, defeat Kyle Shanahan. And maybe the Ravens, and maybe Kyle Van Noy was right. Maybe the Ravens produced a template for how to beat Brock Purdy. We'll find out in time, because let's be honest, Brock Purdy after the Ravens game and the Niners offense after the Ravens game didn't look the same. They really didn't in any of those games. So, including the playoffs against Detroit and Green Bay, and they were lucky to escape those games against, teams that weren't quite ready to win. So Brock Purdy's going to have to be on his game, because Detroit's getting better. Green Bay's getting better. Philly's getting better. And there's probably a couple other teams as well. I mean, the Houston Texans come to mind in the AFC. I mean, this is an ascending, improving football team. And what you did last year probably is not going to be enough to beat those teams going forward. You got to do more.
And look, the thing that I think that there's, the bullseye that people lose focus on the most is just the working knowledge that you should be operating under all times. Everything you're looking at in this league is incredibly hard. I don't care how favorite you are by Las Vegas. I don't care that the 49ers are favorited in every game before the year even kicks off. This is so brutally hard. And the 49ers, again, have been studied like a fine-tooth comb to not just figure out how the NFL can stop them and slow them down, but the NFL is trying to emulate what the 49ers are doing. There is no team that has had more teams copy its style of play than the 49ers since Kyle Shanahan became head coach. Every single team studies Kyle's running game as if it were, the dictionary. And this is where you go to figure out how to spell all things correctly and get your grammar right. So that's how regarded Kyle's running game is. Everyone in football is copying it right now, basically. So it's one thing to try to figure out how to slow you down. It's another thing to try to figure out how to copy you. So the Niners got to come in and going in terms of the eyeballs on them. And like you said, the league is getting younger and better all around them at all times. And this just brings me back to, I got a little triggered by the way the Pacers blew game one of the Eastern Conference Finals in Boston last night, Larry. This was a team that if they're going to go to the NBA Finals, they got to steal one of these early games, and it was on the stick, and they blew it. And it just makes me think of Steve Young just coming out and harshly saying, like, hey, the best chance you're ever going to have to win a Super Bowl was probably last year, and you blew it. Like you could get back there this year, but is it going to be your best chance? Like, what, you can't be in more of an opportunity to win a Super Bowl than here you are. It's the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl. It's a tie game. Go win it right now. You win it. And as Steve said on your channel, Super Bowls are ripped from the bloody hands of your opponent. The Niners didn't do any ripping when it was time to do the ripping. And I just see blown opportunities and how hard it is to get back. And as good as the Niners are, as good as they might be, they're still catching 5-6 losses easily this year, because that's just the way the league operates, you'd think. And it's going to be hard to do this again. And the expectation of getting back to the Super Bowl is officially not even good enough.
Well, I would just say, I would look at it one way. First of all, it's kind of like what you and I have done for years and years, talk shows. If you sit there and go, I have to come up with 300 talk shows in the next year, it seems overwhelming. Like, how are we going to get all those guests? How are we going to come up with all those topics? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Don't look at it that way. Look at it like, I got a show today. How do I make today's show great? And just keep making today's show great. And that's where Brock is. If you ask him, he has this famous saying that he loves to repeat, which is, I'm at where my feet are at. In other words, I'm not getting too far down the road, and I'm not living in the past, and I ain't living in the future. I'm just going to live in the present, and I'm going to try to get better every rep in practice and every meeting. I'm going to try to improve incrementally, and then I've got confidence that if I just keep grinding and I keep working, that it will all be there for me. And I kind of feel like the same way about the 49ers. It's like, yeah, if you think of it that way, like, oh my God, you got all these up and coming teams, and man, you got to play 6 months of football, and you got to stay healthy, and all these things have got to go right. And yeah, it does seem like, wow, it's going to take a Herculean task to get back there. But then when you just kind of go through it and you're just like, you know what, and that's where I think Shanahan, as a real football guy, his teams are in the present. They're not living in the past, and they're not looking towards the future. They fire most weeks. They play with good energy. He brings good focus. He's been doing it long enough. These guys have been doing it long enough. There's enough experience on his coaching staff where I think they just, it's about today. It's about today's practice, today's walkthrough.
When you look at it all, it's overwhelming. It really is.
It is. I mean, think about it. Have you ever thought about that, though, when you're those years where you're doing a talk show, you're like, dude, me and Ray have got to come up with 300 shows this year, or I've got 40 shows between now and when I take my next vacation, or something like that. If you think like that, it's like, oh, it's too much. But if you just are like, hey, what's the biggest story today? Let's find out. Let's talk about the biggest story today. And tomorrow we'll talk about the biggest story tomorrow. And Wednesday we'll talk about the biggest story on Wednesday, and Thursday,
right.
Then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you know what? I can do this. I just have to don't get too far ahead of myself.
From my very first night at KNBR, which was October 24th, 2006. Taking over for some sports talk host who didn't make it, Larry. Sorry about that.
I really made it.
Look at you now. 4,440 shows. By the time I get to my 11 o'clock show, that's going to be show number 4,441. I count them all. And to look back at it, yeah, it's incredible. How the hell have I found as much crap to talk about to get me through 4,000 plus shows? It's incredible. But I don't.
Without compromising, without, there's, you also want to do it your way. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to have good shows, but I want to do it my way. I don't want to sell out and just make a bunch of, start pushing some rumor that, is false, or trying to drum up some topic that, really there's nothing, you're making an argument more than you're really discussing a topic. I always, I never wanted to compromise.
Me neither.
I don't want to compromise. I don't want to do, there are people, Damon, and I won't name them, but we both know them. There are people out there who literally you can hear by the way they talk that they're really just looking to fill the allotted time. Like, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something that I could say in 15 seconds, and I'm going to take 75 seconds to say it because I got 3 hours to fill. I got 4 hours to fill. I'm going to be filibuster Phil over here. I always hate that because to me, as soon as I know where you're going, I'm bored. If I get there, if I know where you're going before you get there, I'm bored.
That's why you and I have made so many friends in our careers, Larry. By the way, a guy named Butthead, fantastic. Butthead just puts this out here, and he's right. I got to share it. We would have won the Super Bowl if the overtime rules were never changed. Imagine if it were 10 years ago during the Brady era, Moody could have been called, a hero kicking the game-winning, Super Bowl-winning overtime kick. Like all the romance that was attached to the Steelers, or excuse me, the Patriots kickers and how good they were. And look at the rocks on that. Oh yeah. That's right. Rules change. The Niners have a 6 Lombardi trophy. If we didn't need to live in a world of mamby-pamby, everybody gets a free opportunity now to go ahead and score in overtime. Like it.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that. The numbers revealed that the winner of the coin toss went on to win, like, I think it was like almost 90% of the time. It was like 88% of the time. Do we want the coin toss to have that much importance? See, I think that we've evolved to a better spot. I know what the guy's saying, and I agree, I hear him, but I don't want that much on the coin toss. I just don't. I don't want that much on the coin toss. We lived with it. It was the origin of overtime and this and that. I don't know if it was good though, right? Was it really good to win the coin toss and see somebody make, a couple first downs and then all of a sudden here comes the kicker? I'll tell you what I would love is just eliminate the kicks altogether in the overtime. Just, make score touchdowns.
No field goals.
No field goals. That's what I'd love to see. Touchdowns. Just a touchdown.
All right. Sorry. Last time I'm talking about the Super Bowl and how painful that was. I got to get it.
I'm not even that burnt up by the Super Bowl. I'm more burnt up by the Super Bowl. You and I sat next to each other in New Orleans when the Niners had 1st and goal from the 7, and all of a sudden LaMichael James and is getting carries. Frank Gore's not, and you got Randy Moss, but Crabtree's getting the ball, and it's like you got the greatest running quarterback in the league, but he's not running, and you got Harbaugh calling timeouts because he's nervous. I mean, it was gag job.
What's Harbaugh doing? Calling timeouts, letting the other team rest. The team, old man Ravens. Anyways.
Oh, well, we sat there and watched it live. And that thing was so painful that I think I probably only watched it one time after the loss, right? I came home, flew home, watched it on TV. I'd taped it. But I watched it this year when the Niners played the Ravens. And obviously now we're years removed. But we're getting the real broadcast. In real time, at the beginning of the 49ers' final drive, which resulted in nothing because they couldn't get it done. Kaepernick is running, Gore's running, and the announcer literally says, and I forget who the announcers were. I think it was CBS. It might have been Phil Simms, Jim Nantz, something like that. And they're like, this Raven team is out of gas. They don't look like they can run with Kaepernick or tackle Gore at all. They look really out of gas. And they were out of gas. And then what did the Niners do? They gave the Ravens a 2-minute warning and then an additional timeout. The Ravens had like about 12 minutes of real time to towel off, catch their breath, and refocus at the end of a drive where they were cooked. They were done. And Harbaugh misread that entire thing. Totally misread that thing. And that was the one. That is the one that haunts me. The Mahomes is Mahomes. And Super Bowl 54, if that game had gone on for 15 more minutes, the Niners would have lost by 21. I mean, and that team was amazing. And this one was frustrating because the Niners had it in their hands offensively on 3rd and 4 and could have put it away and didn't. Instead gave the ball back to Mahomes.
Right.
So they learned a painful lesson. But that's Mahomes.
Dynasty. Yeah. You're losing to a dynastic team.
Yeah. You're losing to the best offense. You're losing to a franchise that has the best offensive player, the best defensive player, the best defensive lineman, the best defensive back, and the best coach, and arguably one of the greatest tight ends that ever played. You're losing to an incredible team. That Ravens team with Joe Flacco,
they were all right.
Old man Ray Lewis, an old man Ed Reed, an old man Bernard Pollard. The 49ers were the better team. They were favored to win the game, I believe, and they were the better team. They blew
freaking team deer antler spray. Got away with it. Remember the deer antler spray? God almighty. All right. So I got something to get little timeline cleanse here, Larry, for you. It's my last sort of 49er topic. So was there anything else either from OTA that you saw yesterday? I know you're going back down today. And anything else you want to put on the table before we hop into one other thing before we say goodbye?
I would just say that I think the 49ers definitely look like a deeper team on the line of scrimmage. I think I mentioned that before, but I definitely think they're, I don't know how it's going to shake out, Damon. I don't know who's going to start on the offensive line. I don't know who exactly is going to start on the defensive line. We talk about Floyd, but it might be Yatir Gross-Matos. We talk about Collins, but it might be Jordan Elliott. We don't know who's going to, and I don't know who's going to start left to right on that Niner offensive line. But I will say this, looking at both sides of the line of scrimmage, I think they're deeper, and I think you could make the argument they're deeper and better on both the O-line and D-line. And at the end of the day, that's pretty important.
It's good. That's good. They need to be better in both those places. So
like Cooney looks real. Kingston looks real. Nugent looks real on the offensive line. And then on the defensive line, there's some interesting guys there. Shaquille Brown, Evan Anderson, kind of no-name guys. But then you also have Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins. We didn't see Malik Collins, but I just think overall, 49ers look, they needed to improve on the line of scrimmage. I think they did improve on the line of scrimmage enough. I'm not sure, but they definitely improved.
Whenever Shanahan does something that rubs me the wrong way, and I say his name in my mind, it always comes out like Cartman in South Park. Cow. I never really liked the name Kyle. I don't know how you feel about the name Kyle. It's just a name, kind of.
It's better than my name. Every time I watch television, the asshole is always Larry. Have you noticed that? Even when you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, have you ever heard, his agent, Jeff's wife,
Larry,
say, Larry.
Larry's a good name to complain
it.
and attach to a complainer or a whiner or a villain. Yeah, but
they always make the jerk on the commercial, Larry. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Here's the thing about my name. My name's never in the script. My name doesn't even make it. Like, my name lives in a really weird space of not used very often. Try to find another Caucasian Damon. We are a very rare species indeed.
I know one, Damon Stainbrook, the owner of Pig in a Pickle.
There's a Damon Amendolara, who's going to be coming out on June 7th to go to the Coliseum with me. We're going to be doing a little show from Line 51 in Oakland. There's Damon Bailey, of course, one of the best Hoosiers of all time. You get a Damon Bruce, and that's we're out of white Damons quickly.
There's not a lot of you.
No, there's not. So it's you're
gonna be doing a show with Damon Amendolara from Mad Dog. Is he Mad Dog now? Or?
Yes, he's coming out to
the DA show.
The DA show is coming out to do a show with me from Line 51. It's Damon Palooza. Damon's a poppin'. As many Damons as you can fit on one stage. Screwing John Fisher, figuratively, not literally. Anyway,
is there gonna be an A's bend to the thing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's in conjunction with the Last Dive Bar guys. By the way, I'm rocking one of their t-shirts today. It's with the Dive Bar guys, and we are going to head on over to the Coliseum for the last reverse boycott game, and this will be my final game ever at the Coliseum, and I've said that about 9 different times, but this time we officially mean it, so there you go. Anyways, back to the name Kyle. Larry, the city of Kyle, Texas, tried to break a world record this past weekend for the largest gathering of people with one name, and unfortunately fell short. 706 Kyles. Kyles of all ages turned up in a suburb of Austin, which is Kyle, Texas, to try to have the most amount of people with one name in the same place. Unfortunately, as we know with our Kyle, it didn't go according to plan, and they didn't win the Super Bowl of all names in one place. The crown is held by a town in Bosnia. And look, Larry, there's not a lot going on in Bosnia. When they have, let's get all this names together in Bosnia, it probably, it's more of something to do than in America when they're like, all Kyles assemble. Bosnia, got 2,325 dudes named Ivan together back in 2017. Again, Ivan is apparently the John of Bosnia. So there's a lot of Ivans reported for duty. And according to Guinness World Records, a town in Bosnia with its 2,325 Ivans in 2017.
How many Ivans can we name? I can name one. Ivan De Jesus. Played for the Cubs, played for the Phillies.
Yes, Ivan.
Yeah, I think you went by Ivan De Jesus, but Ivan, he was Ivan.
Ivan Drago. That's, you know,
if he dies, he dies. Could you imagine if an MMA fighter or a boxer said that after potentially killing somebody in the ring? The guy's down, he's not breathing.
Oh, it'd be trending. It'd be trending on Twitter.
He dies.
What if he said it in a Russian accent, even though he was from like Oklahoma? He just went full Drago just to go bad guy. That'd be good.
But Drago, just because Drago is a tall blonde guy, he had to like Brigitte Nielsen because she was a tall blonde chick.
Hey, Brigitte had a significant fastball back in the day. She really did.
She didn't have a type, but she went for Stallone and Gastineau.
And then Flavor Flav.
That's right, Flav.
So, you know,
he got there after a few other hands had been there.
She's a broad that's Radnich line. There was a broad spectrum of tastes that we've seen from her. Yvonne
Lendl and Patel. There you go.
Yeah.
We don't know a lot of Ivans or Ivans.
Ivan Reitman was a director. He directed Ghostbusters, right? Ivan Reitman.
Look at you.
Thank you.
Who knew that?
Anyways,
it's a very obscure Ghostbusters. You know, Ghostbusters has got there's a new Ghostbusters out. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that. I actually heard it works as like a funny horror movie. I heard it's pretty good.
My kid went to it. And he's like, Dad, I didn't get it. I'm like, well, you probably didn't see the first one. That's why.
Maybe. Do you need to see the original Ghostbusters to understand this Ghostbuster?
I don't know. I mean, I'll say this. You know, one of my favorite movies was Anchorman. One of the worst movies ever was Anchorman 2.
Oh, without a doubt. Like
Anchorman 2 was like somebody decided to make it up like in a car on the way to the studio, and we just said, well, we'll just do this from the first one, and we'll do that from the first one, and we'll steal from this, and we'll steal from that. I mean, that movie was tragic. I mean, that makes Caddyshack 2 look downright entertaining.
Oh, Caddyshack 2 is Godfather 2 compared to Anchorman 2.
Yeah.
Good Lord, that was bad.
That was that may be the worst sequel maybe ever. I mean, there's probably a couple others people could come up with, but Anchorman 2, brutal.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. It's like they had 3 good ideas and they're like, okay, so we got 8 minutes of film here. We got to get to 90. What else how do we get to 90 for it to be a feature-length film?
Beverly Hills Cop 3 was better than Anchorman 2. Did you see Beverly Hills Cop 3?
One in the amusement park?
Well, they were at Marriott's. They filmed it at Marriott's next to Levi's.
Oh, bad.
Did you ever go to Marriott's as a kid? I mean, you didn't get here until 1995. You're already 20.
Great America?
Yeah, Great America. Did you ever go to Great America?
Yes, I've been to Great America. I've never been to the one in Santa Clara.
Demon, the Tidal Wave, Orleans Orbit. Those are some of the rides back then. The Tidal Wave was just one loop. And then back. The Orleans Orbit was awful. I mean, that was a terrible ride. Anything where you're just like spinning around I can't handle that.
Centrifugal force pinned you against the wall. Is that what that was?
Couldn't handle Orleans Orbit. And I'll tell you that gigantic bird cage thing that they had at Marriott's also was like made me sick to my stomach.
I've never heard a Great America called a Marriott's.
It was called Marriott's. It was called Marriott's Great America when it was owned by the Marriott's Corporation. Then it was just
Daniel Snyder bought that, by the way. That was Daniel Snyder's foray into billionaire.
He bought Marriott's.
He bought Great
hotel
America.
Chain.
He bought the entire chain of Great America amusement parks, I believe.
Oh, did he? Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, so
they have a new ride there. It's called Peek at the Cheerleaders.
The Kyle experiment's going backwards. A few years ago, they got about 1,400 Kyles in the room. Now they're down to 700 Kyles. So the Kyle momentum is losing momentum to become the number one gathering of one name all in one place. No one's going to take down the Ivans in Bosnia is what I'm looking at here, Larry. I've handicapped this whole thing. No one's coming for the Ivans.
Really, they've got a big enough lead. They're going to maintain that lead, and
I think so. I think so. That record's way out there with over 2,300 Ivans, and you can't even get 700 Kyles together.
I don't even know that many Kyles. I would, now I name my kids kind of common names, right? Kevin, Benjamin, Christopher, my daughter's Anna. We went with kind of, I don't know, classic names.
Well, all of these names are blue jeans. They're not fancy. They will never go out of style. They're not bell bottoms. They will always work. They will always fit, and they will fit a person throughout the entirety of their life. You can be a young man named Kevin. You can be an older man named Kevin. It's like it's
a solid boy's name.
Right. Let's say you're Danny. At what point do you have to stop being Danny and become Dan? Because you're a man now. You know what I mean? So I
always thought that with Jimmy Johnson. You really, you're walking around, you're 60, people calling you Jimmy. Doesn't that seem like a kid's name?
It does.
Not James or Jim.
Yeah.
That's Jim.
Well,
That's Jim Johnson.
Or
how about here's another one that used to drive me crazy. We had a guy in our fraternity in college. His name was Patrick. And, because I was such an ass, I used to call him Pat. Like, how you doing, Pat? And this guy, every single time, would absolutely lose his S. Call me Patrick! And it reminded me this week of Michael Malone. Don't call me Mike. I can't shorten. Call me Michael. I thought his thing this week, we didn't even talk about that on Monday. We probably should have.
We talked about it a little bit.
I thought his thing was embarrassing, dude.
Well, it's
Seriously.
the old
people
classic.
kissed your ass. People kissed your ass last year, all year, and you sat there and ate it up. Now you gagged a 20-point lead at home in Game 7 on your home floor as the favorite and the defending champion, and somebody asks you a question about it, and you insult them and come unglued. I mean, what a minor league motherfucker that guy is.
It really was a inglorious moment for a guy who tries to play the role of I'm a big man, I can take anything.
I can take anything.
Yeah, no, you can't.
You can't.
You're
a bully and you're sad.
Yeah, you're pooping yourself at this press conference. I can see it. Little on the NBA, Larry, as we sort of wrap up today's show.
Yeah, I didn't get to comment at all on the NBA with your Pacers Celtics, but I did think my handicapping on that series was the Game 1 winner is going to win this series. So I guess I'll lean towards the Celtics, but I actually think that the Celtics remind me of a team that's waiting around to gag, and I like Halliburton more than I like Brown, and I like more than I like the Pacers Halliburton Siakam more than I like Brown and Tatum. So I was thinking that maybe the Pacers get it done, but I don't know. They lose Game 1. That was probably their opportunity.
They really, really blew it in Game 1. They played so sloppily in the final 30 seconds of trying to close it out. I mean, they were like casual with the ball, the way that the Warriors make you want to pull your hair out, casual with the ball in some of the biggest moments of that game. And then you get the Jaylen Brown corner 3 to send it to overtime. That was a big shot. Tatum had 36, had 10 in overtime. He was good. But I think the biggest news today from the NBA is that the NBA is finalizing its next media deal, and it's going to be with ESPN, NBC, and Amazon, which means TNT is out, which means inside the NBA's got 1 year left in it, unless somebody throws an awful lot of money at Ernie, Kenny, Chuck, and Shaq to come over.
Ernie's made it clear he's not going anywhere. His time at Turner predates that show, and it sounds like he wants to show loyalty to Turner. That show's overrated. That show's overrated.
The show is overrated, but it is also the Mona Lisa of pre and post game shows compared to the crap that ESPN is putting out. I mean,
well, just because they're
ESPN
relaxed
thoroughly
and they're sitting there, it's
embarrassed
midnight. They're in Atlanta. There's nobody there. They're
Right,
it's
ESPN
organic. They
thoroughly
don't have
embarrassed.
producers in their ear and stuff. I like Charles and I like Shaq, but Kenny's a tire fire, and to me, he's just sitting there as a lapdog for Charles. And I love
They work
Ernie.
together. They complement each other. It works as a group, and as individuals, it feels replaceable. As a group together, they've entertained me an awful lot after games. They have.
They've been good. They've been good.
Yeah.
It's good.
I look at ESPN, and I'll
But it's
tell you,
overrated.
the other thing that has been come sort of under fire here is how bad the ESPN booth is now. Like Mike Breen is really good, but JJ Redick, he adds nothing to these broadcasts. And Doris Burke, unfortunately, has gone from, she used to be really admired because we didn't get enough of her. And now that we got too much of her, everyone's like, she's not as good as everyone thought. Like, she says the word wow as analysis way too often. And, she's a little bit of a house organ for the league. And that's not a very good booth. And they had a good booth.
Where's Van Gundy?
They let him go, dude. He got fired.
Yeah. I mean, why? I mean, to me, that he was the substance there.
Yeah.
Jeff Van Gundy. Now Stan is just but Jeff, I think, is pretty good. And it was Jeff and Breen and Jackson, wasn't it?
Yeah. And that was a pretty good. And then they put Breen and Doc Rivers together. And then Doc got back, took the Milwaukee job. So he left. And now they put Doris and JJ Redick. And there's just no chemistry. There's just.
I get nothing out of JJ Redick. JJ Redick to me is a bore.
Well, and I also, there's, how you treat a producer goes a long way into what I think about anybody. Lucas, you can ask Lucas about this. You ever go back into 95.7 The Game to make $20 an hour filling in, Larry? Ask Lucas. JJ Redick. Lucas was trying to book JJ Redick on our show.
Hey, by the way, it's 50. It's 50 an hour.
Oh, nice. But it's me and it's Ray Ratto. Again, you don't know who Damon Bruce is. Fine. Ray Ratto's got a little bit of a name. This is Afternoon Drive. This is San Francisco. And Lucas got JJ Redick's cell phone and called JJ Redick to see if he'd be interested in coming on.
I think I've seen this play out on Twitter with Nahagian. Didn't JJ Redick got pissed that the producer called him out of the blue?
How dare you call me directly? I have an agent. You go through the agent. There's a booking process. How dare you? How dare
then you can just say that. You can just say that, hey, by the way, could you go through my agent? Usually most guys, if they're cool, they'll be like, hey, I can or can't do it right now. In the future, the best way to get me is to go through this person.
That's the thing. There was a very nice way to return a call politely and ask, could you do this the other way next time? But he just called Lucas back, aired him out as if Lucas broke into his house and stole something. Right. And from that moment, I thought to myself, well, here's another cocksucker from Duke. Fuck JJ Redick.
Yeah.
So that's where I've been on. That's where I've been on JJ Redick ever since.
What do you think? Does he think he's empty?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's totally overrated. And any people who play the race card just ridiculously anytime they want, anytime just casually and throw that out, as to me, that's just really minor league. And he played that whole thing with Russo, and to me that was just so cheap. It was so cheap. So I'm not a big JJ Redick guy. And I just think personally, that he's one of those guys that, he's perfect for ESPN because he'll play up any angle they want to play up. He'll listen to the producer and have the stupid argument that they want to have. So he'll fall for the banana in the tailpipe.
Did you watch any of the JJ Redick LeBron sits down? Because there is some very interesting conversation to be mined from the two of them talking. But it's also very appropriate that they have two wine glasses in their hands as they're doing it. It's unfortunate that the wine in the glass isn't replaced by their own farts, so they could just sit around and sniff their own fart. It's the name of the JJ Redick LeBron podcast should be called Basketball Fart Sniffing 101. It's just the two of them.
It is amazing, by the way, on a different note, because I can't go into the fart sniffing thing, but how many, the disparity or the difference in opinions on the pro basketball future of Bronny. There are people that claim that he's going to be great, that, you know, and then there's people that, you know, basically are saying, hey, this kid didn't even deserve an invite to the Chicago pre-draft camp. He sucks. He can't play at all. And there's other people who are like, you know what? I forget who they were comparing him to, but they were comparing him to somebody who was like pretty damn good. And I'm like, wait a second, and then, you know, he's supposedly 6'4", but he's really more like 6 feet. And he can't shoot, but then other people saying he's going to be great. And, you know, it's like, what is it? I mean, is he going to be great, or is he just, you know, the son of LeBron who's being overhyped to the hilt because he's the son of LeBron? I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it's like, I saw him in the Chicago pre-draft camp. He looked okay. Nothing more.
Yeah, no, if his last name were Smith, he's undrafted.
I mean, I've heard people say that the Warriors ought to try to go after Bronny to see if they could get LeBron to sign. It's like, really? You're going to go sign a 6'2" guard who can't really shoot because maybe his 40-year-old, you know, drama queen dad is going to sit there and come play for you and in maybe his final year? That's where you're at. I mean, please tell me you got to, you know, it's like the old, you know, Few Good Men. Please tell me that you've got more than that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, please tell me you're not, you know, tying these guys' future to a phone book or to a, you know, cell phone record or something like that. It's like, come on, tell me please, Warriors, tell me you have more than that.
Yeah, Private Santiago deserves better than that.
Right, exactly. Private Santiago.
Let's see. What else?
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Giants in Pittsburgh. Giving up 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th. Bad outing for Camilo Duvall. I would dial back that entrance a little bit, and maybe next time it's gone to his head. No, look, Camilo Duvall's been really good all year. He had his first blown save of the year. Connor Joe, of all people, scored the winning run for the Pirates in extras.
I hate extras, by the way, in baseball. It's like, stop it with that. That's the dumbest, worst bastardization of the game. It's stupid on every level. I hate it. I hate the extra innings rule in baseball. It's like, it's not even baseball once you get to the 10th. So I can't stand it. But I will say this, that O'Neal Cruz, Jesus, that guy hits the ball hard. He hit the ball twice in the game over 120 miles an hour. I mean, this guy is absolutely raking the baseball. And I can't wait the next couple of days. I think the Giants see Skeens coming up maybe Thursday, and the other ace. The Pirates suddenly have a couple young aces. I will say this, though. The Giants are so much more watchable. And by the way, you know who had a key mistake in that thing? It's Marco Luciano. Marco Luciano, you know, I guess Nick Ahmed must be hurt.
Yes.
But if they could, you know, Marco Luciano is your shortstop in innings, you know, 1 through 7. And in the 8th inning, you got to put Nick Ahmed out there. Luciano just had a ground ball to short, would have been a double play, would have ended the game, definitely would have won the game for the Giants. And he just gaffed it. Just a major error. And so that's what Nick Ahmed's there for. You know, if they can get him healthy, get Nick Ahmed, play Luciano, start him every day. In the 7th inning, take him off the field and put Nick Ahmed out there for defense. That's their best foot forward. But I'll say this, the Giants are so much more fun to watch with Ramos, Matos, you know, Casey Schmidt, who's now down, but Luciano,
Play
You
the
know,
kids. Play the kids.
seriously. I mean, even Mason Black, the guy Randy Rodriguez out of the Pen who throws 100, Doval. I mean, the Giants now, not because they're genius, because of injuries, have been forced to play these kids that they didn't believe in. And these kids are better than the guys that they're stepping in for.
Right.
Luciano's better than Ahmed, and Matos is better than the outfielder he's replacing, and Ramos is better than the outfielder he's replacing. And it's like, Farhan, it's like you're so freaking conservative even in a going nowhere rebuilding type year where nobody picks you to win, even finish second or third in the division. You're like universally fourth in the division. You still couldn't put your young guys out there. It was still too big of a risk. And it's like, now here you are 6 weeks into the season or whatever, a couple months in, and you guys are all hurt. And now you're forced to play your young guys, and they're playing well. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of last year in that the Giants were boring as shit in April. Then there was a nice little run in May where they called up Schmidt and some young players, and they played pretty well. And then they, started thinking about, are we in it? Are we in it? And they talked a lot of big game going into the trade deadline, picked up nobody, AJ Pollock, and then sunk like a stone. And it's like, that was their season last year. Well, here we are. It's May again, and they were far more entertaining in May than they ever were in April.
Well, has the injured list ever been named executive of the year? Because right now it's the best thing that the Giants front office has going for it. None of these players, not one of them who is producing in this lineup would be in this lineup if Farhan had his druthers. And that to me is like the concerning thing, because all these guys are clearly better than the guys who they're replacing.
Especially Ramos, Damon. I mean, my God, what it's embarrassing that the Giants, took this long to give Ramos a shot. And people are like, he's been around forever. He's never gotten 3 weeks to just get out there and play. And what's he doing right now? I think yesterday he had a hit and a walk. He's hitting over 300. He's got the best outfield arm. He gives you he hit one out to center field over the weekend. Ramos, and he's a hell of a guy. I love talking to the guy. I root really hard for him. And Matos are absolutely got to be here to stay. Got to be here to stay. At least the rest of this year on this team.
Larry Blake Snell, nowhere to go but up. He's back 0-3, 11.57 ERA. He makes his return to the bigs this evening in Pittsburgh. So are they going to get?
He looked awesome in his rehab start the other day. I mean, struck out 10. I think he gave up like one hit.
That's good.
The tilt on this breaking ball is crazy. The Giants have just got to figure out how to get him back to where he was a year ago. This guy won the Cy Young last year. He won the Cy Young Award.
Yep.
So
putting back-to-back years together, though, has always been his problem. Putting back-to-back years together. But
here's the game plan, I think. Get him right and get him the hell out of there. He's got a 2-year deal. I think he can opt out after year 1, right? So he might be a free agent. He'd be a perfect hired gun. If you're trading for him, you're either getting 1 year or a year and a half. If they can get him looking like he did last year. Now, this is where I don't know if I trust Farhan. If they get him rolling, the Giants should part with him and get a great young player or two coming back. But they won't.
Get him rolling. They're not. They're going to be like, he's going to be the reason why we won the wild card round. Because
right. Exactly. He's going to get hot if they're lucky, but then they're going to not react the way they should because Farhan's about Farhan and not about the Giants. If he was about the Giants, he would trade Snell to a Yankees or to a Dodgers or to some other team and get a top prospect or two. Like the A's are going to trade their number 1 reliever probably because they commit to the rebuild. Instead, no, they're not going to commit to the rebuild. They're going to be like, this is going to be what Blake's going to be the rest of the way. He's going to get us into the first round. Once we get into the first round, anything can happen. I know it because I saw Boch and Crawford and this and that. Those days you don't have Boch, you don't have Posey, you don't have Crawford. So, but that's the way this is going to go down. There's some of their veterans are gonna come off the injured list in the middle of the year, and the Giants will have teams that will say, "Hey, we'll give you a good prospect for him," and Farhan will fuck it up. He'll sit there and he won't take the prospect, and then they won't make the playoffs. And then here we go again, where it's like you got this expensive team, and they didn't make the playoffs. And should he come back? And should he not come back? It's just
all right. I'm tired of hearing even you talk about it. Quit filibustering on this guy.
I'm just telling you. I'm right though. I'm right.
Yeah, oh no, yeah. I said as much as you did, but I said it in 30 seconds. Let's go to our star Jack Larry. What do we got?
Okay, here we go. We got this one from Kyle. Look at that, Kyle.
Pooney, Hubbard, Colton at right tackle.
What's he saying? Feliciano at center, Pooney at right guard, and Hubbard
or McKivitz at right tackle.
I would say if it was up to me, I go Drake Nugent over Brendel at center, Pooney over Feliciano at guard, and McKivitz over Hubbard at tackle.
Well, I mean, would Pooney be going over Feliciano though, or Burford?
Both.
Yeah,
both. But I would rather see. I guess I would rather see Pooney and Burford share right guard, and have Feliciano as the backup to Nugent, and maybe cut Brendel.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think he's making $5 million.
Feliciano might not be on the roster.
I don't know. Feliciano graded out really highly last year. So, but once again, PFF.
Whatever.
We got this one.
Blood Moon. Larry, Ravens D had 4 interceptions. Any quarterback would capitalize.
What's he talking about?
I don't know what specifically.
He's talking about he's talking about the game with Purdy. He's talking about the Christmas game last year.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean saying that Lamar, wasn't that good? Lamar played awesome in that game.
Yeah.
Lamar had that run in the third quarter where he cut it back and he made Warner look bad. Lamar was really, really good in that game. But the Ravens got a lead. He played from ahead. Look at Lamar in the playoffs against Kansas City. How do you look in that game?
Not too good.
Not as good.
Again, from Blood Moon, and there's a guy named Bus says, this is what happens when you read Super Chats an hour later. That's fair. If Brock didn't get hurt in the NFC Championship game, he would just have many playoff wins as Allen and Burrow. It's insane. The last pick aura around Purdy plagues him. And I'll agree with that for sure. Brock Purdy is a living example of all of your draft analysis isn't worth a hill of beans. And that's what people, I think, they just reject wanting to praise him because he was so overlooked. You're basically admitting, I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm making shit up as I go along. And there are a lot of people who don't want to admit that, feeling really good about a college football player coming into the NFL is literally your opinion that is made up to fit whatever argument you want to make. The NFL will tell us who can play in this league. Not you, not your prognostication, not your well-researched, developed think piece on any one person. Football is waiting, and football is the lie detector test that all these guys have to pass or fail.
Well, it's like your buddy who's just a total fool with this take where he said Caleb's going to lead the Bears to the Super Bowl.
Who said that?
Your buddy over at Fox.
Nick Wright said Caleb is going to the Super Bowl this year. The Bears are going to the Super Bowl this year. That's his official pick.
Yeah, you didn't see this?
No, I don't watch. I love Nick. I'm not rapidly consuming him at all times. I have not.
Here it is. I'm going to show it to you because you got to hear this. It's unbelievable. So we'll take this down. We'll show this.
Nick.
Yeah, this is an unbelievable bad take. This is one of the worst takes of all time.
Okay.
This is an overrated player if I've ever seen one, but we'll see. Maybe that's just me. That's just thinking he's overrated. Here he is. Here's Nick Wright.
Forget guaranteeing the playoffs.
Don't.
I'm flirting with the idea. I'm asking the bartender.
Don't do that again. That's a crazy.
Does that take want a drink down there?
Oh,
I'm
God.
thinking about buying that take, asking that take out for dinner.
Some take at the end of the bar.
I think Caleb could lead the Bears to the Super Bowl in his rookie season.
Oh God Almighty!
Can I
Can I
That's
lose all my credibility in one prediction?
That is the best Chris Broussard reaction cutaway of Chris's entire career right there. Just like,
I mean, come on. I'll say, and it came up again yesterday with the Brock Purdy presser. And this is where I would be like, guys, drop it. But he's got so much patience for this idiocy. He was again asked about Mr. Irrelevant. This is 2 years ago that he was named Mr. Irrelevant. People are like, did you watch the draft? Do you keep up on Mr. Irrelevance? Are you following the other Mr. Irrelevance? It's like, can we just let it die? I mean, my God, it was a terrible. It's interesting only because it was just so clear that everybody got it wrong, including the Niners. If the Niners thought he was that great, they wouldn't have taken him with the last pick in the draft. So everybody missed on Brock Purdy, but it's just like he has this unbelievable amount of patience for these questions about Mr. Irrelevant.
well, and I really think
Like,
that
dude,
the NFL
just
should
drop
try to
it.
do away with this Mr. Irrelevant thing. I mean, it's the only league that gives everyone in the world full permission to make fun of a draft pick as it's being made. It really, it's such a weird brand.
It's also weird in that outside of the first round, I think the most number of players that are in the NFL are undrafted players. So it's like there's all kinds of undrafted players that make it in the NFL every single season. So why are we calling the last pick in the draft Mr. Irrelevant when the Niners bid $380,000 for Evan Anderson to get him to sign with them after the draft instead of signing elsewhere? So it's like, I don't know, if there were 12 rounds of the draft like it used to be, and you want to call the 12th round guy, okay, I guess maybe, but in a league where teams are going to be like literally bidding almost $1 million to get undrafted players that they covet, why do we keep making this, and it is kind of weird too. It's like, I don't think it's insensitive. I just think it's weird.
If you want to see someone who's irrelevant, go back and watch the game film for AJ Jenkins. I uncovered a level of irrelevance rarely seen in the first round. I'll show you what irrelevance looks like to the point where he's not even dressing.
I will take the audience in this stream back to the Niner conference room as we were hosting that show on draft night. And Harbaugh and Balky walk into the room. Damon and I are conducting the interview. And Damon's like, Trent, I'll pose it to Trent. You may have said it to Harbaugh. Trent, you know me, I'm an Indiana guy. I watch nothing but, Big Ten football. I never heard of this guy. I mean, tell me about this guy. What do you like about him?
Damon, I wrote his name down in an envelope, and I put the envelope in my desk. And I looked at it, I opened it up today, and I said, you know what, that's our guy. And I feel good about it. Coach feels good about it. Everybody, all the football guys in our building feel good about it. So I'm not going to get down just because, a local talk show host who watches a lot of Big Ten football, didn't have him slated to go to us. We're doing a lot of work over here, Damon.
Mm-hmm. Someone's like, this really happened? Yes, this really happened.
Yes,
it really happened. And then I got
nothing was better than when I followed up with Harbaugh. So Jim, you guys took Jenkins in the first round. You played in the Big Ten. He's obviously a Big Ten guy. Tell me what you liked about him. Yeah.
fast.
He's a guy that's we've been looking at. There were a lot of receivers in this draft, and he was one of them. We took a good hard look, and we decided to pull the trigger because he does some of the things that we like, and that's why we liked him. I mean, it was like he talked for like a minute and said absolutely nothing,
And then And then we find out after the fact that Harbaugh was furious with the decision. He wanted Kaepernick in the first round, and they come back on day 2 and they trade up for Kaepernick. And Harbaugh.
Was that the same draft? I'm not sure
think.
if that's the same draft. I might be. You might be misremembering.
Am I juggling things around there?
I don't know. I'd have to. Maybe somebody in the chat knows. But I think AJ Jenkins. I didn't realize that. I don't think wasn't Alden Smith the first pick? Yeah, that was it. The Niners in the Kaepernick draft. Harbaugh wanted to draft Kaepernick.
I do have
7th overall.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
And Balky, who knew the draft board, was like, "Hell no, we're taking Alden Smith," and then had to appease Jim by all the misery as Jim was berating Balky in the Niner war room that they'd missed on Kaepernick, forcing Balky to trade up in round 2 for Kaepernick.
That's right. And then that's when Harbaugh dropped the I wrote his name down in an envelope, which was a shot at Balky and the AJ Jenkins thing. So that's
which was also stolen from Sonny Weaver from the Draft Day movie, which was out right around the same time, where he took it was a Bonte Mac no matter what, or something like that. Or Bonte Mac no matter what. That was Sonny Weaver.
I've never actually seen that movie.
It's actually pretty good.
I don't
actually pretty good.
Sports movies. I cover enough sports. Anyways, Larry, I do have to get going. I got a show coming up at 11 o'clock today. We're going
Did you write your guest name down in an envelope?
No guest today. It's just going to be Damon riffing for about an hour, and then, we'll see where the day takes him. But there's some very interesting information coming up. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe. And there you go, Larry. Take us out. Craig, it's so funny. You always think about a guest. It doesn't have to be a guest. Sometimes some of my best shows are just me and Tom. And we'll take some calls, and we'll talk about Friday's Mean Danger. And I'll say to Tom, Tom, we got a full board. There's a full board of calls. Pick one. Go ahead, Tommy, pick one. And then Krug comes in and says, "Man, it smells like garlic fries in here." Krug, you're so cute. You get mad at the Giants and Dusty. And, it's so cute how mad you get. Krug, don't get mad. Come with me. Take a ride in the Miata.